Good morning, League fans. It is our second ever episode. Welcome back. And I hope you enjoyed your rugby league at the weekend, wherever you are in the world. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I'm sure it's all about State of Origin. And we've got an interesting program coming up because I did a fair bit of travelling at the weekend. Went to 2 games in Hull, saw Ryan Hall break the record, then saw Leeds' worst loss of the year, only the second win for Hull, so we'll talk about that. And then 3 tries in a row to Daryl Clark on Sunday here in London at the Stoop, where St Helens put the cleaners through London. But it is Tuesday, and so Tuesday is, in the NRL, Teams Tuesday. All the teams are announced. I used to get excited about it back in the 90s when no one else did. Now it's like a huge deal. I remember my bosses telling me to stop worrying about teams because there's more important things going on a Tuesday. But now there's not, really. Maybe because of State of Origin there is. But anyway, so just the big news, Friday's game, Dolphins and Melbourne, and Jesse Bromwich is back, but more importantly, Tavita Pangai Jr. It's been mid-season signing for the mighty Dolphins, and he is in the team. Ryan Pappenhausen is back for the Storm. That's at Suncorp Stadium on Friday night. Gold Coast and the Warriors at Seabus Super Stadium, and David Fafita is back from an ankle injury for the Titans. Man who said he was going to leave, now sticking around, and the Delamartini Zalesniak suspended for the Warriors. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is back, but in the centres. And obviously a couple of players missing in State of Origin camp, Mitch Barnett and Kurt Capewell. So Dylan Walker is in the second row. Jacob Laban and Tom Ale join the bench. What else is happening on the weekend? There's in the split round on Saturday. That was a Saturday game. The other Saturday game is the Roosters and the Doggies at Gosford, and James Tedesco is obviously available because he didn't get picked by Origin, but Collins, Lenu, Crichton, Watson, all unavailable. So Dom Young is back for the Roosters, and Brandon Smith's also back from suspension. Nat Butcher is in the starting side. Tyrrell May's in the starting side. A youngster called Blake Steep, he's been named on the bench to be second game. Jacob Carraz goes into the centres for the Doggies, and obviously that's because Crichton is on Origin duty. Josh Curran will play despite being carted off with concussion, and a couple of youngsters on the bench there. The final game on Saturday hits South Sydney and the Manly Seagulls against each other at Acor. Obviously, Cam Murray and Latrell Mitchell are on Origin duty. Jai Gray comes back into the team from an ankle injury. And Keon Kolomatangi, he's going to be at lock. Jai Arrow is in doubt with a rib injury, but he's in the team. A whole heap of changes for the Seagulls. Terri Evans, Hamali Olakawatu, Jake Pravojevic, all on Origin duty. Ruben Garrick, concussion. And Taniela Pasecco, who's got a thumb injury. They're all unavailable. So the players coming in look like this: Carl Lawton, Ethan Bullimore, Nathan Brown, Corey Waddell, Aaron Shoup. Yes, a lot of changes there for Anthony Seibold. Sunday, we're at Campbelltown. The Tigers, coming off a win, taking on the Raiders. And Lachlan Galvin, who was going to leave but is now apparently staying. He's been playing with a hand injury, broken hand for months, allegedly, but he only missed one game, and I can't be cured in 1 week, but he's playing anyway. Abby Coruscant goes back to hooker. Aiden Caesar in the centres. Adam Douay, crowd favourite, he returns from a knee injury last week, and he's been named on an extended bench. So he played lower grades last week. And, perhaps a debut for Kit Lauitiiti Kit Laualii. He's going to make his debut. Tom Starling is out for the Raiders. Zach Wolford comes into the side. Danny Levi stays at hooker. So there you go. Lots coming up in the hour ahead on Good Morning League fans. Thanks for joining us. It's only the second episode. We're easing ourselves into things. We didn't have a show yesterday, but we're going to have one tomorrow. Anyway, as I said, plenty coming up. And next up, I want to talk about that day at Hull on Saturday, where I think even the man himself, Machiavelli, would have been paranoid. There was so much weirdness going on Saturday. So I'll come back and talk about that. Welcome back to Good Morning League fans. And I know that we were going to talk about Hull, but I've sort of changed the order up a little bit because this fella has become available, coming to us from Brisbane, and to talk about Origin. I think he's actually definitely the longest serving member of the ABC commentary team. Definitely. I mean, by a stretch now, right? Is that right, Brad Tallon?
Yeah, I think it is. In 95, I started doing NRL. I've actually worked for the ABC on and off for over 50 years. I think they're longest-serving casual employee. So, yeah, covered a bit of various sports, but plenty of footy in that time.
You don't look like you've been alive for 50 years, Brad, so it's a good effort.
I started young.
Now, it's interesting after the last Origin, obviously Reece Walsh taken out and Joseph Swally set off, and there's this kind of simmering, like there is an issue, but it's kind of just below the surface, isn't there, where the Queensland camp wants to suggest he was deliberately taken out, but they don't want to actually say it, and then Michael Maguire's kind of had a sort of shot back at them, kind of, but it's below the surface.
It's Origin, isn't it, Steve? I mean, for sure. Look, there was no doubt in that first game that, they've got to, they wanted to put pressure on Reece. There's no doubt about that. Early on, Martin, after a kick hit him, and then of course the Swalihi tackle certainly went wrong. There was no doubt he was trying to hit him hard. I don't think he was trying to hit him in the head. I don't think there's any question that it was deliberate. But a bit of a slip and a bit of an out of control charge, and we saw what happened.
What do you make of the changes for the second game? Selwyn Cobbo has been rested, which back in the day kind of wouldn't have happened back in the day, would it? And obviously the headline is Latrell Mitchell. I know Mitchell Moses coming in as well, but Latrell Mitchell's the big star, isn't he? He's coming in for the second game in Melbourne, and New South Wales trying to tie the series.
Yeah, well, look, with Selwyn, they've done a bit of that with him with the Broncos as well, so he's a very, very laid back character. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and he just clearly, obviously, Billy just thought he wasn't quite right at the moment. So, despite the fact he did such a good job coming off the bench in game one, but yeah, look, they certainly, Reece Walsh comes in. They've got the cover now. He's still gone with that back on the bench, effectively with Kurt Capewell. He's still obviously covering himself, Billy, in case there's an injury to an outside back. Kurt hasn't been in the greatest of form this year, but haven't we seen him turn in some fantastic performance playing in the centres in Origin, Kurt Capewell? So he's clearly going to fill in that Cobbo role on the bench. So I don't think they're going to lose too much there with Cobbo probably not in the right place. And the only other change enforced Jermaine Hopgood out, and when he came off the bench as 18th man, I thought Felice Kafusi, he was a bit under the radar. He did some great tackles just when they needed it at a point when New South Wales were really motoring through in the forwards. And so I think Queensland, those changes really don't wouldn't think they're going to have too much of an impact on the strength of the side. New South Wales, look, you don't want the other side to pick a player, the players you don't want them to pick, and I don't think Queensland would want them to pick Latrell. And look, he was in fantastic form. I did the sideline for the game down the coast, where he just was his just brilliant self. He practically beat the Titans on his own, Latrell, and he can show what he's capable of. In the centres, he's got that X factor. If he puts on a great game, he is just so hard to contain, and I think they have to bring Latrell into the side to have that X factor. I don't think it's all lost for New South Wales. I think what we forget, that middle 30, 40 minutes of the game, incidentally, the time when Harry Grant was on and Ben Hunt was off, Queensland didn't score a point, and New South Wales were on top. If they had a halfback who could have kicked a bit better and taken advantage of that, if they scored another try in that period, Queensland, it was panic stations. And, Mitchell Moses' kicking game, I think, will make a big difference. I think he's just got that better kicking game than Nicho Hines. And I think that's going to be so important. And if that New South Wales forwards can get that roll on again that they did get during that middle 30-minute period, I say watch out Queensland.
Now, before we started taping, we were talking about you coming over to the UK, but will you be in Melbourne for Origin too?
Still, I'm not 100% sure. I'm hoping to get down there for it. I've just got a few things I've got to sort out before I go away. But so I'm hoping to get down there. It's not a great ground for Queensland, that MCG, but they've only had, I think, they've only won one game there, so it's not one of Queensland's happy hunting grounds, the G. So they'll have to have their game on to win the series if they can. Obviously, they've still got to come back to Suncorp Stadium, which they'll be very confident doing. But if they can finish it off in Melbourne, I'm sure they will. It's
not a great place. You're a long way from the action there, Brad. And I remember many years ago there was a streaker there, and you're so far away from the action that one of the reporters got the gender of the streaker wrong. So that's a good indication of how far away you are from the...
Yeah, it's not exactly a great ground for rugby league, that's for sure. Plus, also, I think what happens with those ovals too, the kickers get a bit off target too, because they're not quite sure where the sidelines are, and quite often you see kicks go out in the full or go astray. So and it can be a bit slippery, that ground too. So it will be interesting to see how both sides cope with it. I think that'll favour New South Wales, actually, that just a bit of that slipperiness underfoot with the big forwards motoring forward. They don't have to step too much; they can just go straight ahead.
Brad, it's great to hear your voice, mate, and we're looking forward to seeing you here in London in a few weeks. And enjoy Origin.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Look after yourself.
As promised, I walked into MKM Stadium on Saturday. Knowing that it was an important game for Leeds and for Rowan Smith. And I was surprised when I got into the press area, but only mildly surprised, that Tony Smith was there, the former coach of Hull, who was sacked mid-season. And turns out Tony was doing some work on Sky, part of the TV coverage. And I just got to say, I didn't think this through, and I just want to give full credit to. I'm sure that he was chosen by Brian Carney. Maybe not. Maybe he was chosen by someone else in the Sky camp to be a guest. But as the pre-match build-up with Tony unfolded, I came to appreciate the genius of picking him. Firstly, he'd been sacked by Hull, and therefore he could be asked about that decision by the club to let him go mid-season and to bring in Richie Myler as football manager. Now, Richie Myler, his partner's dad is Andrew Thurkill, who has been approached to invest in the club. Hull is struggling financially. So Tony went into that, said it was obviously, basically to paraphrase him, and you can watch the interview yourself on YouTube, that it was part of the plan to bring an investment to the club, and that he said that he used to coach Richie Myler and had time for him years ago. I think he maybe meant, I used to coach him years ago and had time for him, but he said I used to coach him and had time for him years ago, which is got a different meaning. So there was kind of that, which was already very newsworthy. But then Hull were playing Leeds, and the nephew of Tony Smith is the Leeds coach, Rowan Smith, who himself is under pressure. And John Wilkin, who's also on the panel at Sky, had been critical of the style of football that Leeds have been playing. So suddenly Brian can then switch from, the personal or the professional, you've been sacked by this club, what do you think, where are they going now, to the personal. Meanwhile, your nephew's under pressure, and this fella standing here has been critical of your nephew's coaching. It was absolutely brilliant television, and it speaks to Brian Carney's legal training, that he was he was able to basically cross-examine Tony Smith on two levels and then on the intersection of the two levels. So who would Tony Smith be hoping wins that afternoon? You would say the club of his nephew in preference to the club that sacked him, definitely. But he's not going to be silly enough to say that. And he's not, and so it was really a question of Tony knowing, Brian having a sense of the sympathies of the guest, the interviewee, and then prodding him to see how many of those sympathies could be drawn out. I guess I'm speaking as a journalist here, and I guess portraying a little bit the way we think when we approach an interview, why you choose to ring someone in a certain situation and what sort of questions you ask them. You do have an idea of where their sentiments might lay, and you give them the opportunity to express those sentiments, even though they maybe don't plan to. So just a round of applause for Brian Carney. Brilliant broadcasting on Saturday. And I left the ground thinking that Hull may claim two members of the Smith family this year, in that it was clearly the worst loss that Leeds have had, because it was to a team that had previously only won one game all year. It comes a week before a home game to pay tribute to Rob Burrow, which makes me think that there's no way they would actually make the decision to part ways. But the third part of the triangle of the Salford, Leeds, Hull FC triangle is Salford. Now, the new head of sport at Leeds is Ian Blease from Salford. Hull, Richie Myler, previously approached Paul Rowley, who plays under Blease at Salford, to be coach, and he turned them down to say he was staying at Salford. So if Rowan Smith was to part company with Leeds, then you would imagine, and Peter Smith from the Yorkshire Post asked this question of Ian Blease, you would imagine that Ian Blease would maybe have another dig at his good friend Paul Rowley to bring him across to Leeds, perhaps next season. So you've got this triangle where conceivably some of the sort of Machiavellian, I mentioned Machiavelli at the start of the show, some of the Machiavellian people out there listening might have assumed that Paul Rowley, now I don't have any evidence that this is the case, and I will even come out and say it's probably not the case, but nevertheless, people will think that Paul Rowley, in turning down Hull, already knew his friend was going to Leeds and that there would be an opportunity in Leeds, and that would be a better opportunity. So you've got this sort of triangle of movement, and you've also got both Smiths being potentially the victims of this Machiavellian plotting. That in one case it was at Leeds we bring in a CEO, he'll bring a coach with him, and then in the other case, the other Smith, Uncle Tony, is if I get rid of Tony Smith, bring in this other fella, he'll bring money with him. It's absolutely fascinating. It's Shakespearean. It's absolutely Shakespearean. Anyway, I'll leave you with Simon Grix, the caretaker coach of Hull, and this little zinger at the end of the press conference when I asked him what his favourite memory of the day would be, and he had a go at an unnamed Leeds player. Back after the break.
There were a couple of contacts in there that were quite nice. I think a bit of petulance has crept into our game, and those that are petulant to get served a bit, I don't mind seeing that.
I've been covering London Broncos games all year for the Mirror and home games, and on 3 occasions coaches have had to get on the bus and get a player off for me to speak to, because the visiting coach, who is almost always, aside from Simon Grix, who you just heard from, almost always a winning coach, he'll come into the press conference and everyone will be on the bus waiting to leave, to go home. And so I've come up with this sort of plan of action now where when the game is over, I run down to the fence because inevitably the visiting players are paying tribute to the fans who've made the trip to London. I run down to the fence and shout out to the player to come over. The media managers may not like it, but the main principle when you're a reporter, people, is that you at least have access, as much access as a member of the public. At least, right? You can't be denied access that a member of the public would have because you're representing the members of the public who aren't there. So if I'm not going on the field or going anywhere I'm not supposed to go, I'm going to go down to the fence and grab a guy as early as possible. So grab Ryan Hall when he didn't score against London, and everyone else did a couple of weeks ago. And on Sunday, I grabbed Darryl Clark, who scored a true hat-trick. That is, he scored not just 3 tries in a match, but 3 in a row. It was his first hat-trick in 14 years, and they're the only 2 he's had in Super League. So there's no audio of him. Well, I think he spoke to the club because they can go on the field, right? I can't. But anyway, I thought you might like to hear this chat I had with him at the fence on Sunday at the Stoop, with London back at the Stoop for the first time in 11 years. How are you? Mate, have you scored a true hat-trick before?
Yeah, well, I've had one in my career. That was when I was at Cass in 2014. So, tries don't come often these days. So, second hat-trick in my career. So, I take that.
And mate, you don't see 3 in a row very often at all, do you?
You
scored 3 in a row.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't even realise that, but like I say, it took me 14 years to get another 2 hat-tricks. So,
you don't care what order they're in.
Yeah, I'm not too fussed on which order they're coming in or what minute. So, like I say, it's a pleasing win, and to get a hat-trick, obviously for me, it don't come around that often. So pleased with that.
James Bell, mate, you've got a good combination with him. He seems to know when you're there, and vice versa.
Yeah, to be fair, he put 2 of them on his plate for me. I didn't have to do much apart from support. So, but Belly's got that quality in his game. He can beat people and offload. So he did all the hard work. To be fair, I didn't do too much apart from supporting. But like I say, I take it.
Mate, you lost Tommy after only 3 minutes, so that's a bit of reshuffling. So you got to.
Yeah, I just noticed Ben Davis was out there. I didn't really see him go off. So I'm not even too sure what he's done. But hopefully Tommy's all right. But I thought Ben Davis jumped in the centres, Percy to the wing, and did a solid job. So not too bad.
How do you think you're travelling, mate, as a team?
I think we're all right. I think the last 4 or 5 weeks, I think we've improved on the start of the year. So just building really. Obviously, I'm still pretty new, only 13, 14 games with this team. So I feel like we're slowly getting better. Obviously, plenty more to come, and obviously we've got a long way to go. So plenty of time to improve.
Go on, you mate.
Cheers,
safe journey home.
Welcome back to Good Morning League fans, a second ever episode. I listened to the first link I did, and I was like, unfortunately, this show is supposed to be a bit like a cup of coffee. It's supposed to wake you up. So it doesn't help if I haven't had a cup of coffee and I'm kind of talking slowly and I'm kind of... Anyway, I'll try to sort of liven it up a little bit. But the section we had with Simon Grix a bit earlier was something said at the back end of a press conference that maybe escaped notice. And this is the same. This is Mike Eccles on Sunday after the 52-6 loss to St Helens, when he was asked if the aim was to keep the nucleus of the current side together in the championship in future. And he basically said he was angry at the fact that it was being treated like a shop window, and that the implication was that, as many players as possible should leave and should get Super League contracts. And he said that he was going to fight that with all his fibre. So have a listen to what Mike Eccles said about that.
It's always my plan to retain as many players as we can. When I first took over, in my time here, it's imperative for any club, any successful club, to keep and retain as many players as they can and let the team grow together in any sport. That's even harder for London because of the difficulties it faces, and there's a higher turnover in London, history will tell you, than probably anywhere else. So it's even more difficult than when you face what you face with this year. Let's be realistic about this. We're going to struggle to retain most of these players, because what the game's allowing us to do is, and what annoys me is when the agents say, well, it's great for the players though, isn't it, to try and get another gig somewhere else. I don't want that. So to answer your question, I want to keep as many players as I can. Realistically, the game is allowing us to showcase our talents to be picked off. So that's disappointing. But I'll do my very best to keep as many players together as I can So we learn the lessons that we've learned from this year, and we go forward in whatever competition we're in next year stronger.
Welcome back to Good Morning League fans, second ever episode. I want to thank you for listening, and if you're listening on the podcast, there'll be a few added bonuses afterwards and some other little grabs from the weekend and that sort of thing. Now, with podcasts, a lot of people have said to me, what's happened to the podcasts? They're still there, but we're not broadcasting them as live anymore because it was just impossible to cut them up so that we could have news every hour and then make sure that they remained current. So different podcasts got out of date at different times of the week because the teams play at different times of the week, if you get what I mean. So it was more than a full-time job to try to keep turning them over and keep them fresh. So now we encourage you to go to rugbyleague.com, hit the podcast tab, and you can watch them, listen to them. Some you can watch as well on demand. Now, one of the great discoveries, I think, well, for me anyway, of the first phase of rugbyleague.com and the playing out of podcasts was the fact that we highlighted the Only in Rugby League podcast, which is absolutely hilarious. It's gold. And every week they've got a segment where they highlight things, ridiculous things that happen in rugby league that could only happen in rugby league. So let's go back 6 days and have a listen to that segment of the show. And Only in Rugby League, thoroughly recommended. Make sure you follow it. Make sure you listen to it on rugbyleague.com.
Okay, so we now move into a happier, cheerier section. It's our Only in Rugby League.
Yeah, we haven't even done this yet.
No, we have not. Now, you would think in a game where you think with a sport where there is only one men's game, one women's, and a championship game, there'd be less to talk about this week, wouldn't you? However, I believe we have, bear with me, we have, yes, we have 22 Only in Rugby League this week. So
that's more than 3 a day.
Yep. Let's dive in, shall we?
Bobby, that was quick counting, that was.
I'm good at my maths today, aren't I? Getting there.
It's almost like he counted it before he started recording.
It's all those
No, he used one of your fingers and one of his toes, or one of your toes. Don't worry about it. I know what happened.
Okay, so our first one, the Sky Sports app, as of Saturday 10 p.m, there was still no score for the 1895 Cup final between Wakefield and Sheffield.
Well, maybe Sheffield might be able to go out again and make amends.
They're still playing. Number 2, the League Express reported that Matt Pat has revealed his recruitment and retention plan for Wigan.
Great coach.
So
is he related to Gail Platt or
Gail Platt? Yeah. So Matt Pat is
Pat.
The
I thought it said. Sorry, I was full on it. I was like, I've made a great joke. Why has no one laughed?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Matt Pat is the new head coach of Wigan. Over to the NRL.
His brother Postman was good though, wasn't he?
Postman Pat.
Great
there we go.
There we go. I'll make amends.
There we go. Over to the NRL. Our only NRL one for this week, just so you know, out of 22.
Only an NRL.
The Melbourne Storm ran through a banner this weekend, and it read...
Stormios.
Sorry, the Melbourne Stormios, ran through a banner this weekend, and it read, made for the future heroes, our pathway for success, except they'd spelt success wrong. They spelt it with 1 C. So it was Success. So
she was the canteen lady, wasn't she?
Success. Hull FC advertising the Remembering 2006 night, and you can book your seat with Paul Cook and Danny Washbrook two former players. Except Paul Cook was spelt wrong. They forgot the E.
Oh, did they?
They forgot the E in Paul Cook. So, nice to know they still remember their old players.
Well, he is a Hull KR fan, and he's...
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so yeah. That'll bring up... Ooh. Dangerous lines there, Johnny.
Going over to the other side of Hull. We had to mention it, didn't we?
I'll let you have that one. No, we're not. We're actually going to Warrington. And this one comes from one of our many listeners in Wrench. And Wrench has posted his submission for the most farcical story of the week. He likes that we're allowed to submit these. He has asked, can he submit the 78.5 minutes of Warrington's performance this weekend?
What happened in the other minute and a half?
I can tell you what happened in the other minute and a half. He was taking photos of me looking like Rose from the Titanic.
Yes, he was, wasn't he? He was.
Yeah.
He spotted you at Wembley.
He messaged me and said, "Where are you?" And I seen where he was. I could see exactly where he was. I said, "Turn left, look up," and I look like Rose from the Titanic.
I hope you weren't painted like one of the French girls, though. That's not a sight, that.
No, Catalan weren't playing, Johnny.
As always, as well, I should have mentioned this. Thank you to that submission from Wrench, and thank you to everyone else. Connor.
I've got a really bad image in my head now. I don't think anyone wants that.
No, I don't think anybody does.
The image is on Twitter. Don't worry about it.
Thank you to Connor, Forbidden, Wrench, Sammy, and anyone else who has sent in any only in rugby leagues this week. So our next one is a bit of a late drama, definitely worth mentioning. I know Johnny's a big fan of this one.
I was crying laughing last night. The
Keith Mason Twitter saga. Apparently, according to his parliamentary group leader, he was sacked from his parliamentary group, to which Keith Mason replied saying he hasn't been sacked as he has Muslim friends.
Essentially.
So
that's a basis of it.
Yeah, if you want to have a good laugh, go and check out.
And he does say no one has phoned him up to tell him he's been sacked. So.
Oh, does he really? Oh, there you go then. So he may, who knows? Keith Mason may still have a job. We don't know. We
don't know. Well, developments next week.
Yeah, we'll stay tuned for that one. Number 6. I don't know if anyone saw this. The Hindley under-11s coach has had a bet with over the result of the Challenge Cup final with the under-13s coach of Hindley. Now, the under-11s coach is a Wire fan, and the under-13s coach was a Wigan fan, naturally. Due to Warrington's performance, the Hindley under-11s coach now has ancient and loyal Wigan fan for life tattooed on his thigh.
Why would you agree to that? How? Right, you deserved that. That was stupid. Why are you betting that?
That is the most ridiculous bet I've ever heard in my life.
It's like getting a Wigan tattoo on like your bum or something.
So we've had stag do's.
That's probably where it is.
We've had stag do's as Wigan fans going to Saints games, but I think that one, as far as bets go, that's getting lazy. That is bad. That isn't it?
You know what? Matt Duffy should have paid for that.
You know when confidence is too high.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. The next one is Jordan Abdul has been announced to Hull FC, as we all know. Thanks to Sammy for this one. As Sammy says, they must have persuaded him the FC stands for fried chicken.
Well, Franklin Pele said that, didn't he?
So there you go. So it's the Hull fried chickens. There you go, Brian. You can add that one to your little list there. We've got the granola sharks and we've got the Hull fried chickens.
I've got to get to all the breakfast before I can get to dinner. Don't worry about it.
Fair enough. The next one is Bradford Bulls have advertised their game with Doncaster, selling tickets, except they tagged Doncaster Rovers.
Oh, the football club.
The football club, yeah. So, keep an eye on that one. Bradford Bulls versus Doncaster. I don't know what sport they're going to play, but there you go.
Rugby union.
Rugby. Cricket.
Stock car racing and Odsel.
The Caravan Derby. Do you remember when they did that at Odsel? Did like a derby with caravans, motor.
I remember. That was awful. Our next one is Damian Johnson was interviewing Zoe Harris this weekend. Three wins in a row now for St Helens, Zoe. It's 4 in a row, actually, Damien. Was Zoe's lovely response to the interviewer.
Oh, lovely. What a girl.
You know what made it better? You know what made that better? He played it in the stage.
Oh, yeah, he
put it on the screen and he put it over and literally you could see everyone going, no, it's 4.
Dear. Sticking with presenters, this one was quite funny. Tanya Arnold went over to Danica Prim as the Saints players were celebrating on the balcony at Wembley, should I say, getting ready to lift the trophy, dancing, all the celebrations. She went over to Danica Prim and said, "Isn't it lovely to see these celebrations from the St Helens women, Danica?" Danica's response was, "I think you've come to the wrong person here, Tanya."
Oh, I need to screenshot that face when she asks.
Yeah, that is. That's a big one. That. Number 11. Couple of we're coming into our couple of nice ones here just before we
the big hitters.
Yeah, before we carry on. So obviously nice to mention that Jodie Cunningham was parading the Challenge Cup trophy around during the warm-up of the Wigan and Warrington men's game. She was taking pictures with the kids, passing the trophy around. I believe she was there for around 45 minutes, making sure that everyone got a nice photo with the trophy and passing that around. And I believe it was also done by Wigan with Chris Redlinski as well afterwards. So,
oh, nice.
You don't see that in any other sport.
No.
You won't see that with the FA Cup. You won't see United parading with doing that. So
not for 45 minutes after a game.
So
the one with Jodie was when she went, because I was right next to where they walk up to the trophy.
Yeah,
she's obviously last one. She's captain with M. Rudge, and then she's walking up. She gets about 5 steps up, and she just goes, cramp. And she just cramps. So I was like, no wonder after them carries.
Yeah. So this one comes from our very own Pingu in Bry. So I believe somebody banged into Freddie over the weekend. He caught him on the lip. Freddie's response was, "Dad, I can't play rugby for a week. I've got a head knock." So, if anyone's wondering, Freddie will be out of action next week as he's
back. Trust me, he's back.
Oh, did he pass? Did he pass his HIA, Bri?
He not only passed it, he knocked me out next day. Yeah, don't worry about it.
So, if anyone's wondering, Bri will be missing the pod next week due to a head knock. Our next one, we're back onto the world of rugby league now. We're not back, are we? No, that was the wrong saying. However, we go over to Wigan, who, believe it or not, were charging fans to come to the Challenge Cup celebrations at Robin Park.
I hope there's a bouncy castle for the quid. Mate, what are you doing? Danson's billionaires don't stretch to homecomings, apparently.
£1 a ticket. And you got to see the Wigan players parade the trophy on the stage. But
who has a parade of a trophy at a training complex?
Well, they're not used to having their own stadium, so they need to...
Johnny, seriously, could you imagine Man City? Could you imagine Man City having a training parade, but doing it in the little athletics track?
I remember
where next to the stadium.
I remember Saints doing it in Nosey Road, but They did like a full-on lap of the town and then ended up at Nosey Road, and that was free entry. But like, you could have given them a voucher for the £1 back. You know what I mean? It's like use on refreshments or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? You know what makes that funny is that I bet you the Gerrard didn't even charge £1. I bet you Mark when Mark won the Gerrard, Mark didn't charge £1 for the Gerrard when you all went to Gerrard when you finished there.
Funny, innit?
Yeah, for any Wigan fans wanting to complain on that one, you can direct that one at
John Lee 13.
There you go. You can direct that one to him.
And if you want your £1 back, don't ask it for the ticket office because you'll be waiting 6 months.
Dolphins 30, Cronulla 28 at PointsBet Stadium, and the coach of the Dolphins, Wayne Bennett, and his captain Cody Nikorima have hailed Hamiso Tabuai-Fido's 99-metre try in which he beat 8 defenders. Bennett was asked to compare it to other individual tries he had seen in his long coaching career. Cody Nikorima spoke about the try, and Bennett was then asked how he compared, that's Hamiso Tabuai-Fido, in terms of natural talent to other stars he had seen.
Yeah, in the top 2 or 3, Stephen Wolf scored a try I'll never forget. And I'll never forget this one either.
Yeah, I was at the back actually celebrating. Obviously, it's a nice sight when you see Hammer out in open space, and to his credit, he still had some work to do. I think he beat about 2 or 3 defenders, and yeah, only Hammer can do that.
Oh well, Stephen Wolf, everyone forgets about him. I'd never forget about him. He was wonderful. He had just special gifts that only the special ones have, and yeah, him and Hammer would be the 2 players that I probably think in my time that I've coached that just have that absolute magic to get to that try line and create that moment.
RugbyLeague.com game day. Dolphins 30, Cronulla 28 at PointsBet Stadium, and Sharks coach Craig Fitzgibbon says Nico Hines should not take the misconversion from the sideline after full time, which would have sent the game into overtime. He shouldn't take it too hard, and he shouldn't be shouldering a disproportionate amount of blame for the defeat.
Yeah. So it'll get exacerbated because it's him, of course. Everyone will talk about that. But he, that'll be tough on him because he prides himself. He's been working really hard on it with Daryl Halligan, and his numbers have been terrific all year. So, but I think it's unfair to put it on a goal kick when we give up 22 points in the first half. So I think that was the answer's probably lying in our defensive line in the first half, I reckon. No, he'll be right. He's like everyone else, is just as disappointed. I think he's getting better at that. Yeah, it hurts everyone, you know. So he has to wear it because he's the kicker. But I think he'll be okay.
This is RugbyLeague.com game day, and it was 22-0 to the Dolphins over the Sharks after 25 minutes at PointsBet Stadium. But the Cronulla coach Craig Fitzgibbon has no doubt there was one piece of brilliance from Hamiso Tabuai-Fido, who beat 8 defenders in a 99-metre run from a kick return in the 58th minute that cost the boys from the Shire the game.
Got ourselves to a point there where it was looking awful, and then did something about it, you know, and then I was really pleased with the second half, and then we just have one moment with Hammer, game over. So we obviously prepare for players like Hammer and how such a job you need to do on it, and broken field, etc. And we paid the price for that last kick to the middle, broken line chase, and opened it up. And I thought, you know, they're off the back of a bye. They jumped us with energy there. We'll be flat, but pretty pleased the way we did something about it. But not pleased we didn't get it done either. Yeah, I thought Braden could have made a play and gone and got him, but. Yeah, if you don't get him, that's what happens. So there's plenty of other players coming behind that could have got him as well. So yeah, it was he's a terrific player. He just fleeced us on that.